In today's episode, we're going to have a little fun with Jung. Welcome to the Licensure Lifeline, your place to get the information and insights you need to take those tests toward becoming a counselor. This is your host, Matt Lawson, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking a little Carl Jung. Before we get going, just a reminder to check us out on Instagram, where I post flashcards and some insights that can help you study and prepare for the test. If you do like the show, one of the biggest compliments you can give me is passing this podcast along to other individuals that you feel might benefit from this information. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. I'm a big fan of Carl Jung, and I hope I can do his work justice with this episode. I'm a big fan of Carl Jung and his work. I'm really hoping this episode does justice to the contributions he's made to the psychological world and supporting people. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in Switzerland. He grew up really fascinated by interplay between spirituality and psychology, largely influenced by his father's work as a pastor. After studying medicine, he specialized in psychiatry and worked pretty closely with Sigmund Freud. Unfortunately, their collaboration didn't quite last all that long, and Jung went out on his own with his own ideas and focused more on the spirituality and universal human experience, leading to the development of analytical psychology. But this is one of the things I really like about Jung and his work, is that cross between spirituality and psychology. Highlighting some of the key contributions of Jung's work, first off, you have the collective unconscious. This is a psychic foundation that connects humanity through universal symbols and archetypes. It influences behavior, dreams, and creativity, offering a profound tool for self-awareness and growth. In therapy, engaging with the collective unconscious can help individuals connect with universal themes in their lives, leading to great understanding and healing. Let's get a bit deeper into those archetypes that were mentioned as part of the collective unconscious. The archetypes that Carl Jung came up with, they provided this framework for understanding universal patterns in human behavior and psychology. He defined them as the hero, the shadow, and the caregiver. These archetypes are universal symbols that influence how we think, feel, and behave. You often see them in myths and stories as well. So as I get into them a bit deeper, you're going to probably see characters from movies and films and old stories that you recognize because they represent these symbols that carry throughout human history. First up, we have the hero archetype, which represents courage, perseverance, and the ability to overcome challenges. If you do any type of writing, you might be familiar with the hero's journey, which is a type of a model, a structure that people use for exactly what it sounds like, right? A heroic journey, highlighting the hero and what they overcome and them overcoming the odds. Some of the main attributes of this archetype are strength and resilience, willingness to sacrifice for the greater good, struggles with self-doubt and failure, but ultimately grows stronger. Examples here are going to be Hercules, King Arthur, Black Panther. In therapy, we can connect people to their hero part through helping them identify their strengths and recognize their capacity to face adversity in their lives. You can encourage clients to view these challenges as part of their personal growth along their own hero's journey. This also works really well in narrative therapy if you are familiar with that at all. Putting somebody on their own heroic path, writing their story, their own hero's journey. The next archetype we have is the shadow. This represents the repressed or hidden parts of our psyche, qualities and impulses we deny or disown because they are deemed unacceptable or threatening by society. This includes dark traits like anger and envy, along with things like hidden potential as well. You see people often projecting their inner conflicts here, these traits, onto other people, which can lead to conflict and misunderstanding a lot of times. Examples here might be like Darth Vader or even Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Application in therapy, we're going to talk a little bit about shadow work as well, but this shadow work involves recognizing and integrating these repressed parts to achieved wholeness. So an example might be a client who represses assertiveness and may project this trait onto others as aggressiveness. So being able to explore this with the individual and help the client embrace assertiveness as a valuable tool instead of just being aggressive with people. Last archetype here, the caregiver. This embodies nurturing, compassion, and selflessness. It reflects the desire to care for and protect others. The attributes here are altruism and empathy, and then a tendency towards self-sacrifice. People that are really wrapped up in the caregiver archetype risk burnout. A lot of times this is going to be your people pleaser. This is going to be that individual that, maybe is the mom of the group. They can give and give and give to a point where they just can't give anymore. So you got to watch that in people that tend toward this caregiver archetype. A really good example of this might be Marlin from Finding Nemo. Also, Mary Poppins, old Disney movie. If you haven't seen it or are not familiar, check it out. But applications for therapy, the therapist is going to help the client explore their caregiving roles and the boundaries they need to maintain in order to avoid burnout. You want to encourage the client to recognize that self-care is a necessity. And it's important for them to have those boundaries so they can maintain their self-care. It's kind of that conversation around putting the mask on yourself before you put it on others type thing. But it's useful for clients that are in the helping profession and people that have taken on the caregiving role. So those are your three main archetypes. I want to get a little bit more into shadow work. Besides sounding really cool, shadow work is extremely effective and something that I've done with lots of my clients. But it's a therapeutic and self-reflective process rooted in Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, which represents the unconscious aspects of the self and the repressed parts of our being. These hidden aspects can include traits, behaviors, or emotions that we find unacceptable or shameful, without a really solid conscious self-image. Shadow work involves bringing these repressed aspects to conscious awareness, accepting them and integrating them into the sense of self, ultimately leading to a greater wholeness and self-acceptance. Key principles of shadow work. Jung described the shadow as the dark side. Immediately think of Darth Vader here, right? But that side is not inherently evil, but also contains quality we disown due to societal and cultural and personal pressures. These qualities might be socially undesirable traits like anger or jealousy, but they can also be strengths or desires we've repressed, such as ambition and assertiveness. When you think of the web that people come up with in their unconscious/consciousness around assertiveness and just being able to stand up for themselves and why they don't do it more, it can be extremely freeing to be able to reintegrate that side of themselves into the rest of their archetypical framework, and allow them to rediscover assertiveness. And shadow work is a great way to do that. So remember here, the goal is to integrate, not eliminate. So by recognizing and accepting these hidden aspects, individuals can reduce internal conflict and enhance personal growth. The first step in recognizing the shadow might involve identifying traits or behaviors we judge in others or patterns of overreaction to certain situations. So there's a phase of just awareness where you're trying to become more aware of the shadow self. An example is if you feel irrationally annoyed by someone that is arrogant, it could indicate that you have some repressed feelings around pride within yourself. Next, you want to explore some of these things that you've identified, and this can be done through techniques like journaling, dream analysis, art and creativity expressions, guided meditations or visualizations. So really allowing the person to dig into some of those maybe creative aspects of themselves to just freely explore like these feelings, these thoughts, these ideas. From there, we work toward accepting and integrating. So the shadow work involves embracing what is discovered without judgment. This may include recognizing the traits like anger and selfishness, and understanding that they actually have a protective or necessary function within that system of the person. Okay, that is going to be it for shadow work. So how is Carl Jung's work really used in therapy? I've gone into some of the archetypes and the shadow work that people will do, but another aspect of Carl Jung, his approaches does involve things like dream analysis, which I mentioned as a technique during shadow work to uncover some of these understandings around these aspects of our archetypes, and then archetype exploration as well is another way that we can integrate these things and work with people within therapeutic practice that utilizes Jung's work. Carl Jung's work is a really great way to do some in-depth exploration of a individual and their unconscious. This isn't as popular these days as things like CBT, REBT, some of the cognitive behavioral approaches, because it takes some time. It takes in a world where we want things now. This is not going to be a get it quick fix toward people discovering things about themselves. This is going to be more along those lines of some of those older types of foundational therapeutic approaches that really dug in deep with people, and looked at things at an unconscious level a lot of the times. Okay, let's get into some questions you might see about Carl Jung. First off, which of the following concepts is associated with Carl Jung? Is it A, id, ego, or superego? B, the collective unconscious? C, behaviorism? Or D, self-actualization? The answer here is going to be B, the collective unconscious. Question number 2. What is the primary goal of Jungian therapy? Is it A, to treat phobias? B, resolving trauma? C, achieving individuation? Or D, cognitive restructuring? The answer to this one is going to be C, achieving individuation. Question number 3. Shadow work is Jungian therapy focuses on A, identifying dream symbols, B, embracing repressed parts of ourselves, C, strengthening ego defenses, or D, analyzing the superego. Answer to this one is going to be B, embracing repressed parts of ourselves. The Myers-Briggs type indicator is based on which theorist work? I didn't really mention this, but is it A, Sigmund Freud, B, Carl Rogers, C, Carl Jung, or D, Abraham Maslow? Guess it's going to be C, Carl Jung. Last question. What term refers to universal themes and images in human psyche according to Jung? Is it A, archetypes, B, projections, C, complexes, or D, defense mechanisms? Answer to this one's going to be archetypes. Okay, here are some resources that you can go over to improve your knowledge of this information. A couple of books by Jung, first off. Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. It's an autobiography. And then The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, also by Jung. An article that you might be interested in, Carl Jung's Contributions to Modern Psychology. You can just look that up. If you Google it, it'll pop up. And then there are a couple of organizations here, the Carl Jung Institute in Zurich and the International Association of Analytical Psychology, IAAP. And that is going to do it for our episode today. I hope you found that really helpful. Thank you for listening. And until next time, keep studying.